Outside the death ruins, numerous factions lingered as if waiting for an opportunity. In the distance, more factions were steadily arriving, seemingly intending to see if they could carve out a share for themselves in this prime relic site. Whoosh! As factions continued to venture into the death ruins, a sudden, violent tremor surged forth, accompanied by the deafening roar of rushing wind. The sound swept across the heavens and earth, and soon, countless rays of light burst out of the ruins like a tidal wave. The sheer spectacle of it was both awe-inspiring and breathtaking. That's the forces of the great Luo Heaven Domain. They've come out. It seems all the treasures within the death ruins have fallen into their hands. With the arrival of this massive contingent, whispers immediately broke out among the onlookers outside the ruins, countless voices dripping with envy and jealousy. Greedy eyes lit up with desire, but no one dared act rashly due to the overwhelming power of the great Luo Heaven Domain. At the forefront of the great Luo Heaven Domain's forces stood Chen in midair, his figure exuding an imposing aura. His gaze swept over the ruins outside, then back toward the interior of the death ruins. Behind him, the troops from Xun'er Palace and the Divine Hall followed closely. "Shall we release them?" asked Nine Nether softly as she hovered beside Chen. "If we don't, then Lu Yin might truly lose his mind." Chen chuckled. A subtle gleam flashed in his eyes before he waved his sleeve. A torrent of immense battle will surged forth, enveloping the forces of the profound Heaven Division and mercilessly flinging them out. Whoosh! Whoosh! The battle will shattered into the air with a deafening explosion, accompanied by pained screams. Onlookers from surrounding factions could only gape in shock as countless warriors from the profound Heaven Division were scattered like petals into the wind. After throwing out the profound Heaven Division, Chen waved his sleeve once again. This time, the brilliant surge of battle will wrapped around an unconscious Xiao Tian, transforming him into a streak of light that shot out like lightning toward the northwest. When the battle was finally exhausted, Xiao Tian had already been hurled several hundred miles away. "Let's go." With the chaos at its peak, Chen gave no opportunity for recovery. With a swift command, he shot forward, leading the great Luo Heaven Domain's forces. Their movement was explosive. Within moments, they disappeared entirely into the far horizon like a sweeping storm. As Chen and his people vanished, more commotion erupted from within the death ruins. Forces from Xun'er Palace and the Divine Hall rushed out soon after. Upon seeing the profound Heaven Division's warriors writhing in pain across the hills and mountains, and seeing the direction Xiao Tian had been thrown, Lu Yan's face turned an unspeakable shade of livid anger. "Regroup the profound Heaven Division and bring Xiao Tian back," barked Lu Yan through gritted teeth. Chen's cunning had put them in complete disarray, leaving them unable to mount any pursuit. On another side, the Divine Hall's forces appeared equally disheartened. Feng Yi, the Heavenly Crocodile Lord, and others wore dark, stormy expressions. It was already apparent that the great Luo Heaven Domain had become the biggest winners of the Death Ruins expedition. Once news of this spread, the Divine Hall's name would undoubtedly become a laughingstock in the ongoing Grand Hunting War. "We can't just let them get away with this," said Feng Yi coldly, his voice dripping with hatred. "Our reinforcements will arrive soon. Once they do, we will give chase and corner them. We'll make them spit back everything they swallowed." However, unlike before, the Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others didn't immediately agree to Feng Yi's proposal. Instead, their gazes turned toward Zhantai Lu Li, seeking her counsel. The implication was clear. They were awaiting her decision. Zhantai Lu Li paused in thought under their questioning stares. She then shook her head slightly and said, "Though our reinforcements are on their way, how can we be certain that the great Luo Heaven Domain won't also receive reinforcements of their own? Furthermore, I'm still recovering from my injuries and can't fully unleash the battle will of the Lu Li army. On top of that, the morale of our troops, including the Heavenly Crocodile Army, is low after being captured earlier. They're unable to muster their full strength. If we were to pursue them now, our chances of victory would be slim." Hearing her analysis, the others reluctantly nodded in agreement. Her reasoning was sound. They weren't in a position to engage. As for Xun'er Palace, they were too preoccupied putting out their own fires and would be of no use as allies. Seeking their cooperation would only invite humiliation. Are we just going to let them strut away like this? Fong Yi growled angrily. Don't be so impatient, Brother Fong. Zhantai Luli replied calmly. The grand hunting war isn't over yet. This is just a minor setback, hardly the decisive clash. Besides, our expedition to the Death Ruins wasn't a complete loss. At the very least, I obtained a significant inheritance, didn't I? As long as I have some time to fully comprehend it, I believe that the next time we meet, I'll finally become a true battle formation master. When that time comes, I'll handle Mu Chen myself. Oh, Zhantai Lu Li's words immediately sparked interest. The Heavenly Crocodile Lord and others looked at her with astonishment, their expressions betraying their shock. No wonder they were so shaken. In today's world, battle formation masters are exceedingly rare, and their power is something that strikes fear into countless strong cultivators. For their divine hall, a battle formation master is undoubtedly a weapon of strategic significance, a deterrent force that even a mountain lord like them cannot rival. Zhantai Commander truly is a prodigy of the highest order. From now on, it seems that our divine hall will see the emergence of the Northern Domain's first battle formation master. In this grand hunting war, the commander is sure to shine brightly and awe the four corners, said the Heavenly Crocodile Lord and others, coming back to their senses. They clasped their hands in congratulation, their smiles warmer and more enthusiastic than ever before. They understood clearly that once Zhantai Luli became a battle formation master, her status within the Divine Hall would ascend to unimaginable heights. At that time, even Fong Yi would likely be overshadowed by her brilliance. At this point, Zhantai Luli, with her newfound strength, had already earned the qualifications to be taken seriously by them. On the side, Fong Yi was briefly stunned as well, but could only swallow his dissatisfaction with Zhantai Luli. In the past, he could still take pride in being above her in standing, particularly since her strength had been mediocre. Her fourth-grade supreme level was achieved by relying on the vast resources of the Divine Hall, which were poured into her to facilitate her control over the army. All those resources had been invested to help Zhantai Luli become a battle formation master, and now that she had succeeded, her status within the Divine Hall would undergo an earth-shattering transformation. As Zhantai Luli noticed the instant shift in the expressions of those around her, she smiled faintly and said, "So there's no need for all of you to worry. Let's set aside this grudge for now. The key point of this grand hunting war isn't here." The Heavenly Crocodile Lord and the others nodded in agreement. Indeed, the crux of the grand hunting war did not lie here, but in the higher echelons of power. As long as their Divine Hall's master could achieve a breakthrough during the grand hunting war this time, their strength would far surpass that of other top leaders at the peak forces. At that moment, their Divine Hall could rise to become the strongest peak force in the Northern Domain, perhaps even take it a step further. Thinking of this, the anger in their hearts gradually subsided. By the time they wiped out the great Luo Heaven Domain and its forces, Mu Chen and his allies' survival would be determined by a mere flick of their hand. Let's move. Seeing that she had managed to pacify the others, Zhantai Luli made no move to linger. Casting a cold look at the scattered soldiers of the Profound Heaven Division scrambling to regroup in Xiantian Palace, she turned into a beam of light and sped toward the northern horizon. Behind her, a vast force from the Divine Hall surged forward, blanketing the sky as they departed swiftly. Lu Yin stood in silence, watching the Divine Hall's forces leave. His expression was somewhat grim, but in the end, he shifted his cold gaze toward the direction where Mu Chen and his allies had vanished. With a sinister glare, he muttered, "Mu Chen, you have offended the Divine Hall so deeply this time. They won't let you off easily. When you two tigers fight, it'll be the perfect opportunity for us at Xiantian Palace to reap the rewards. In this grand hunting war, your great Luo Heaven Domain is bound to perish." While Lu Yin muttered his dark curse, Mu Chen had already led the forces of the great Luo Heaven Domain far away from the chaos of the Death Ruins. Only when they reached safety did the army begin to slow its march. Finally, they found a remote mountain range where they concealed their vast forces and paused for a temporary respite. Within the Death Ruins, they had endured countless grueling battles. While strong individuals like them could still manage, Their troops were clearly worn down, fatigued, and unable to keep up with a relentless pace. Rest was now an inevitable necessity. On a mountain peak where the army rested, Chen, Xun'er, mountain-splitting king, and other high-ranking members of their force gathered to assess the gains from their expedition into the Death Ruins. The results of their inventory brought joy that they couldn't hide. We've refined a total of 80,000 fallen source pills from within the Death Ruins. Adding the batch of ransom pills we received from the Divine Hall, along with what we previously acquired, we now have nearly 200,000 fallen source pills in our possession, Xun'er announced, her voice brimming with excitement. As she revealed the massive figure, even the others, who had mentally prepared themselves, couldn't help but marvel aloud in astonishment. These 200,000 fallen source pills are enough to break a seal on one Earth's supreme treasure. Thanks to the King Mu. Otherwise, not only would we have failed to obtain such a large amount of fallen source pills on this expedition, but we might have also suffered significant losses in manpower, Spirit Sword King said, looking at Chen. The rest nodded in agreement. Even the usually opposing Blood Eagle King managed a smile and a nod. After this battle, even the senior kings among them couldn't help but acknowledge a newfound respect for Chen. Chen gave a polite and smiling response to their compliments. This time, we'll take some time to rest here, Chen said to the others with a casual smile. I also want to utilize this opportunity to sort through the items I obtained from the Death Ruins. Therefore, I hope everyone can help stand guard for me. Oh, Xun'er's elegant brows arched slightly, a glimmer of surprise flashing through her captivating gaze. She seemed to grasp something as she asked, "What did you find inside the Death Ruins?" Hearing the question, Chen simply smiled before speaking softly. If this retreat goes as planned, I should be able to become a battle formation master. As soon as those words left his mouth, the expressions of the other kings froze. It took a long moment before they finally exhaled deeply, exchanging looks with one another. In their eyes, an unmistakable wave of shock was evident. Was the great Luo Heaven Domain finally about to gain its own battle formation master? The night gradually descended, and darkness blanketed the land, completely covering the fallen battlefield in its shroud. Yet, instead of bringing peace, the arrival of night made the battlefield even more turbulent. A terrifying spiritual energy tempest raged through the skies, tearing through space itself with unfathomable destructive force. Most horrifyingly, these tempests could sense fluctuations in spiritual energy across the land. Once they detected a target, they would converge like ravenous beasts, devouring the spiritual energy entirely. Thus, most forces occupying areas within the fallen battlefield would choose to cease operations at night. Crowding together risked creating spiritual energy waves strong enough to draw in these devastating tempests. After all, it would be humiliating to spread the tale of having avoided annihilation at the hands of other forces, only to be completely wiped out by a spiritual energy tempest instead. However, no matter how harsh and cruel the environment, it couldn't stop the progression of the Grand Hunting War. Nearly a month had passed since the war began. Throughout this period, countless forces had clashed in fierce battles. Many formerly illustrious factions had been brutally wiped out, their reputations erased forever. The ruthless cycle of elimination continued unabated. Yet, everyone in the Northern Domain was well aware of one certainty. When the Grand Hunting War concluded, the balance of power within the Northern Domain would undergo a seismic shift. Under the veil of night, the mountain peaks resembled hulking beasts sprawled across the earth, their shadowy masses emanating a suffocating sense of oppression. Deep within this mountain range, several military groups sat cross-legged under the heavy darkness, channeling their spiritual energy to mend their injuries. These troops, exuding an ominous killing intent, were none other than the people of the great Luo Heaven Domain. This location served as their rest point, where Chen and his party had temporarily settled. Guarding the surrounding peaks stood seasoned experts, their hawk-like eyes cutting through the darkness. Patrols traversed the area in constant motion, ensuring the perimeter's security. This once remote mountain range had gained an intimidatingly militant air under such careful watch. Deeper within the range, a spacious cave had been hollowed out. Seated at its farthest depths, Chen sat cross-legged in silence. To prevent disturbances during his cultivation, he had used massive boulders to seal off the cave entrance upon entering. This particular cultivation session was of utmost importance to Chen. He had two objectives, both of which he had to succeed in achieving. First, he aimed to break through to the 5th grade supreme realm in his spiritual energy cultivation. Second, he intended to master the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison visualization technique. Chen's spiritual energy strength had already been at the 4th grade supreme level for some time. Over the past month in the fallen battlefield, he had repeatedly brushed against death in battle. Through these relentless struggles, his spiritual energy had gradually improved. By his estimation, he was now on the brink of reaching the peak of the 4th grade supreme level. However, this was not a simple milestone. Despite his progress, closing the gap to fully ascend to the 5th grade supreme realm remained a formidable challenge. Many others in the world had lingered at the 4th grade supreme level for countless years, unable to make this critical breakthrough. However, if it were an ordinary time, Chen might not have considered attempting a breakthrough. But here, within the fallen battlefield, he had discovered a rare opportunity to give it a try. That opportunity was the Fallen Source Pills. These Fallen Source Pills were unique to the fallen battlefield. Their purpose wasn't merely to unlock the formation sealing the Earth's supreme treasure. Contained within these pills was pure Fallen Source energy, a distillation of the spiritual energy essence dispersed into the land when countless ancient powerhouses perished on this battlefield. While the passage of time caused much of this essence to dissipate, the unique environment of the fallen battlefield preserved a portion of it. This preserved essence formed the Fallen Source Pills. For any Supreme, these pills were immensely beneficial. If refined and absorbed, the Fallen Source energy within them could significantly enhance one's spiritual energy and overall strength. And Chen had set his sights precisely on these Fallen Source Pills. Ordinarily, these pills were required to be handed over to their respective factions to facilitate the eventual breaking of the Earth's supreme treasure seal. This made them exceedingly scarce and precious to every faction. As a result, despite understanding the incredible cultivation benefits of the Fallen Source Pills, most factions rarely used them for personal cultivation. Yet, such restrictions were no concern for Chen and his team, who had acquired a bountiful harvest. With a staggering 200,000 Fallen Source Pills in their possession, they had already surpassed their mission's requirements. After a brief discussion among the 9 Nether, Mountain-Splitting King, and the others, it was decided that a portion of the pills would be set aside as personal gains. Ultimately, each person earned their share. Chen's portion amounted to an impressive 20,000 Fallen Source Pills. Of course, this large share was due to his significant contributions. 9 Nether, Mountain-Splitting King, and the others each received only 10,000 pills. Still, they were more than satisfied. After all, without Chen's efforts, they would likely still be scouring ruins for resources and tirelessly refining Fallen Source energy. Completing their mission so quickly was a major success, let alone the unexpected bonuses they gained along the way. Huff! In the depths of a mountain cave, Chen exhaled deeply. His expression was solemn as he prepared for his next step. Yet, he did not rush into cultivation immediately. Instead, he sat cross-legged in meditation, circulating his spiritual energy to adjust his condition and prepare himself. This breakthrough would be exceptionally challenging. Only by giving his utmost effort could he hope for success. Chen remained in meditation for half a day. As the darkness of night began to give way to dawn, his tightly closed eyes finally opened. His black pupils gleamed with sharp clarity, showing no trace of his earlier weariness. Within him, his spiritual energy surged with immense vigor, fully revealing the overwhelming power of a 4th grade supreme at its peak. "It's time," Chen murmured. His gaze sharpened as his sleeve flicked, producing a jade bottle that shot through the air. The bottle shattered with a loud explosion, and beams of light burst forth, transforming into countless Fallen Source Pills that floated mid-air, filling the spacious cave. As tens of thousands of Fallen Source Pills appeared, the cave gradually filled with a misty aura. This was caused by the dispersing Fallen Source energy contained within the pills. Chen inhaled deeply as a stream of the mist entered his body. Instantly, it felt as though molten lava was coursing through his veins. The pure spiritual essence surged along his meridians, causing them to tremble slightly, as if they were ravenous wolves pouncing on their prey. It was an overwhelming sensation of greed. The spiritual energy within him instinctively clamored to devour every drop of that essence, desperate to absorb it completely. It can trigger such an intense reaction from my spiritual energy, Chen muttered to himself, eyes flickering with surprise as he observed the activity within him. The craving his spiritual energy displayed for the fallen source pills far surpassed that of supreme spiritual liquid. These 20,000 fallen source pills might be equivalent to 200,000 droplets of supreme spiritual liquid, he murmured, visibly shaken. It was no wonder the Grand Hunting War attracted every major faction in the northern domain, drawing even Earth's supreme-level experts. Setting aside the legendary spirit divine liquid, the mere presence of fallen source pills was enough to drive countless factions into a frenzy. Chen lightly shook his head, suppressing the sigh in his heart. Then, his gaze turned to the 10,000 fallen source pills floating midair. With a sudden sharp motion, he formed seals with his hands. Buzz! A surge of majestic spiritual energy burst out from Chen's palms. Within the spiritual energy, hints of purple flames flickered, radiating searing heat. This was the undying fire that had been refined into his spiritual energy. To absorb the spiritual essence contained within these fallen source pills, the first step was to completely refine the pills themselves. Whoosh! Whoosh! With a slight movement of his two fingers, the numerous fallen source pills seemed to connect in a line, streaking down like shooting stars and plunging into the burning purple flames. Boom! As the pills entered the purple flames, muffled explosions erupted. The fallen source pills shattered in an instant, breaking down under the flames. Refined by the fire, they swiftly transformed into streams of glazed azure smoke. The smoke escaped the flames, formed into pillars, and surged straight into Chen's slightly parted lips, flowing into his body. Roar! The instant that pure spiritual essence entered Chen's body, his frame trembled violently. His skin flushed a vivid red, and white mist rose from his body in waves. He could sense something akin to molten magma coursing through his meridians, surging madly. Wherever it passed, his meridians twitched, sending sharp pangs of pain. Yet beneath the pain was an insatiable hunger. Chen's meridians and muscles seemed to come alive, greedily devouring the spiritual essence that flowed into his body, as if they were bottomless pits that couldn't be sated no matter how much was consumed. Pain and hunger swirled within Chen's mind, but he kept his composure. Remaining focused, he concentrated on absorbing the pure spiritual essence steadily. He was well aware that, though he possessed 20,000 fallen source pills, this was the total amount he could utilize at the moment. If the breakthrough failed this time, he would have no choice but to delay his journey further. However, as the Grand Hunting War grew fiercer, Chen could clearly feel that his current strength as a fourth-grade Supreme was gradually being outclassed. Tom was not on his side. This breakthrough had to succeed. There was no other option. Buzz, buzz. In the spacious mountain cave, dense azure smoke swirled thickly, vibrating faintly, as if emitting a soft hum. Within the smoke, there was a concentration of exceptionally pure spiritual essence. A single wisp of this essence, if given to a first-grade Supreme, might take a whole month of cultivating the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth to condense. The incredible magnitude of the spiritual energy present in the cave was staggering. Within the silent cave, the swirling azure smoke began rippling. From the depths of the cave, a vortex suddenly emerged, drawing the smoke into it until it vanished completely. At the center of the vortex, a figure could faintly be seen seated motionless like solid rock. All of the smoke surged into his body through his breathing. This figure was none other than Chen, who had entered seclusion in his attempt to break through to the fifth-grade Supreme. As more azure smoke poured in, Chen's skin turned an even deeper red, becoming increasingly hot to the touch. Sweat streamed from every pore like liquid, but as soon as it met his scorching skin, it evaporated instantly with a faint hissing sound. Chen's brows furrowed tightly. Refining the spiritual essence of the fallen source pills was proving far more difficult than he had anticipated. The energy was simply too pure, To absorb it fully, he first had to dilute it using his own spiritual energy before integrating it into his supreme C, thus making it his own. This was a painstakingly slow process. Chen, immersed in his cultivation, felt frustration flicker in his mind as his thoughts raced. By his estimation, at his current pace, it would take nearly 2 months to fully refine and absorb all 20,000 fallen source pills. 2 months. That was a time frame far outside what Chen could afford. He was not safely within the Nine Nether's palace. Rather, he was in the perilous and unpredictable landscape of the Grand Hunting War. Here, anything could happen. 2 months was ample time for untold developments to occur. Not only would they jeopardize his efforts to succeed in his breakthrough, but more serious interference could result in spiritual energy backlash, leaving him with devastating consequences. However, this was clearly not an easy task. Chen's spiritual energy had been fused with the undying fire, giving him an inherent advantage in refining. Even so, it still wasn't enough, which showcased just how difficult it was to refine the pure essence of spiritual energy contained in the fallen source pills. When it came to refining, firepower was undoubtedly the best choice. If Chen wanted to speed up the process, he would need to summon an even fiercer and more violent flame to enhance the efficiency of the refinement. But this, too, was not an easy feat. Chen had merely fused with the undying fire. While the Netherworld Heart Demon Lightning could also aid in the refinement process, its inherent traits made it far less effective than the undying fire for this specific task. Another flame? Chen's mind raced swiftly, thoughts churning for what seemed like a long time. Then, a sudden flash of inspiration struck him, and his focus shifted. With a thought, he appeared within his Supreme Sea. In the vast expanse of the Supreme Sea, boundless spiritual energy roared, occasionally transforming into massive waves, creating a scene of unparalleled grandeur. This was the source of power for every supreme powerhouse. Chen's manifestation of spiritual energy hovered above the Supreme Sea, gazing at its vast magnificence. He looked upward, where refined spiritual energy constantly poured in like an unending stream, merging into the Supreme Sea below. Yet, even with this ceaseless influx, Chen remained dissatisfied with the speed of the process. Let's give this a try. After a moment of contemplation, Chen made a decisive choice. He clenched his teeth, hesitating no more, as his hands rapidly formed intricate seals, his movements creating a blur of afterimages. Buzz, buzz. As the seals took shape, the calm Supreme Sea erupted with turbulence. Spiritual energy surged violently, forming into a condensed mass in the sky above. Within merely a few seconds, the spiraling spiritual energy coalesced into a towering black light pagoda that hovered above the Supreme Sea. The black light pagoda exuded an aura of ancient stability, radiating an air of profound mystery that demanded reverence. This artifact wasn't unfamiliar. It was none other than the Great Pagoda Tower, a technique Chen had not used in quite some time. Derived from the Great Pagoda art, this creation's enigmatic and formidable nature was beyond Chen's full comprehension even now. He recalled witnessing his mother, during their time in the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, manifest a spiritual avatar that extinguished Huanglong Supreme's supreme Dharmakaya and his true body into nothingness with a mere wave of her hand. Such an act shocked many supreme powerhouses. Though Chen might be able to achieve a similar feat now, the gap between his strength and his mother's formidable spiritual avatar was still unbridgeable. Even so, the Great Pagoda Tower remained an unmatched display of unparalleled dominance. Since arriving in the Northern Domain, Chen had scarcely used the Great Pagoda Tower. Before departing from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, Lingxi had cautioned him never to reveal it unless he possessed the strength to protect himself fully. Otherwise, if those with ill intentions detected its origins, it could bring disaster upon him. For the Great Pagoda Tower was connected to his mother's enigmatic clan, a lineage shrouded in secrecy. Until Chen possessed the power to stand among them, he was unqualified to even approach that realm of mystery. Floating silently in the air, Chen gazed at the Great Pagoda Tower, his lips tightly pressed together, fists gradually clenching. His strength might still fall short for now, Yet he could sense how far he had come. 2 years ago, when he first arrived in the northern domain, he had only just broken through to become a first-grade supreme, not even having condensed his supreme Dharmakaya. But now, he was on the verge of advancing to 5th-grade supreme. With his arsenal of techniques and the power of battle will, he no longer feared even 6th-grade supremes. Such growth in a short span was remarkable, and it gave Chen confidence. One day, the once weak version of himself would transform into a force truly worthy of respect. By then, whether it involved the Luo God clan or the mysterious clan his mother hailed from, he would no longer cower. He believed he could one day stand tall beneath the heavens, shoulder to shoulder with the titans of the world. All he needed was time. Chen exhaled deeply, suppressing the roiling emotions within him. His gaze settled once again on the towering Great Pagoda Tower. With his current strength, the Great Pagoda Tower he condensed was far larger than ever before. Its structure appeared even more ancient and refined, with its layers adorned by coiling heavenly dragons etched into the surface. Chen fixed his gaze on the towering Great Pagoda Tower. His hands moved again, performing intricate seals, and as the seals shifted, the dragon engravings etched onto the tower's surface began to radiate brilliance layer by layer. Roar! A resonating dragon's roar shook the heavens and the earth, echoing across the skies. Golden radiance burst forth from the Great Pagoda Tower as streams of massive golden dragons surged out one after another. In mere moments, over 30 golden dragons flew out before diving back into the tower. Boom! As the dragons plunged into the Great Pagoda Tower, they transformed into roaring golden flames that converged into a blazing inferno. The flames spread throughout the interior of the tower, their essence searing and overwhelming, as if capable of incinerating all things in existence. A powerful and domineering energy ripple emanated outward. This peculiar blaze, born from the Great Pagoda Tower's refinement, was precisely the force Chen needed the most at that moment. Such overbearing flames. If used for refining spiritual energy essences, I imagine the effect would be exceptional. Chen stared at the golden flames raging within the Great Pagoda Tower, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. As his strength had risen, the Great Pagoda Tower he cultivated clearly grew stronger as well. The last time he summoned it, he could only evoke 5 golden dragons. Now it was 6 times that number. Still, compared to his mother's feat of summoning hundreds of golden dragons simultaneously, Chen could only marvel. A grandmaster of spirit arrays on par with a heavenly supreme was truly awe-inspiring. Shaking his head to suppress his admiration, Chen calmed his thoughts. A moment later, with a flicker of mental will, the space above the supreme sea seemed to tear open. Rolling waves of green mist surged out like an apocalyptic tide, filling the sky with an overwhelming and oppressive presence. Buzz! The Great Pagoda Tower began to hum and tremble, vibrating with fervor. Under Chen's command, it ascended skyward, the tower swaying as a terrifying suction force erupted from within. Whoosh! Whoosh! The rolling green mist became ensnared, pulled relentlessly into the Great Pagoda Tower as if colossal dragons of smoke were cascading into its depths. Boom! Within the tower, the golden flames flared violently, pouncing upon the green mist flooding inside. The intense flames wrapped around the mist, unleashing a terrifying heat that dissolved and purified it. The mist churned and boiled under the flames' assault, breaking apart until the purest spiritual energy burst forth like a torrential flood. Rumble! The Great Pagoda Tower quaked intensely as streams of refined spiritual energy gushed downward, cascading from its base and pouring straight into the supreme sea below. Thunderous roars echoed throughout the realm. The supreme sea, which had stagnated in growth for so long, began to boil furiously. Waves of spiritual energy crashed through the sea, and its surface, long quiet, started to rise once again. Watching this, Chen finally let out a sigh of relief, his lips curving into a faint smile. Floating above the scene, he sat cross-legged in midair. With the Great Pagoda Tower aiding the refinement process, his breakthrough seemed inevitable. The 5th grade supreme, within reach. Thanks to the support of the Great Pagoda Tower, Refining the 20,000 fallen source pills now seemed like a foregone conclusion for Chen. What reassured him the most was the tower's continuity. It would remain so long as it was fueled by spiritual energy. This relieved him of the need to focus on it constantly, providing him with ample time for other pursuits. He decided to use this time, while the Great Pagoda Tower refined the fallen source pills, to delve into the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison visualization technique he had obtained in the Death Ruins. Within a cave shrouded in dense green mist, the concentrated spiritual energy was intoxicating. Even a 6th grade Supreme would have been envious of the essence contained in every wisp of that thick mist. Deep in the cave, Chen sat calmly, the green mist enveloping him. His expression was serene, unmoving, like a boulder untouched by the tides of the world. Having entrusted the task of refining spiritual energy to the Great Pagoda Tower, Chen turned his focus inward. With a mere thought, the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison visualization technique, sealed in his mind, emerged into his consciousness. Rumble. As the technique surfaced, muffled thunder began to rumble through Chen's mind. The sound carried an uncanny allure, as if it belonged to a realm beyond this one. However, the interference caused by the thunder resonance had little effect on Chen, as he casually dismissed it. Having once refined the netherworld heart demon lightning, a lightning force formless and intangible, relying on sound waves to attack, Chen had become almost immune to such sonic disruptions. Focusing his mind, he directed his thoughts toward the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison visualization technique. Amidst the rolling thunder, an ancient voice seemed to echo slowly, resonating with a weight that could make the heavens and earth tremble. The 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison visualization technique is divided into 9 tribulations. With the mind as the forge, one creates a thunder prison, enduring boundless suffering from countless bolts of thunder. Through this, the will is tempered. When taken to the limit, thunder tribulations are drawn upon. The thunder tribulations are split into 9 levels, each more powerful than the last. Conquering all 9 signifies the culmination of this method. At its zenith, one wields unending battle will, moving at will, capable of contending against heavenly supremes. The ancient voice reverberated through Chen's mind, its booming resonance leaving him deeply shaken. To pass through all 9 tribulations and wield such boundless battle will with ease. Was such mastery even possible? What level of terror and power would that step represent? Chen's heart quivered with awe, struggling to fathom the strength of such a state. Presently, he was barely able to control the battle will of an army of 20 to 30,000, which already pushed him to his limits. The notion of wielding the battle will of countless millions was unimaginable, a scenario of such monumental proportions that it would shake the heavens and the earth. At that stage, perhaps the description would indeed hold true. Even when facing a top-tier expert like the Heavenly Supreme, one could remain unshaken and undaunted. The path of the battle formation master, when cultivated to its pinnacle, could indeed stand at the very peak of the heavens and earth. Suppressing the tremor in his heart, Chen turned his focus inward, immersing himself in the cultivation technique of the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison visualization technique. This method was extraordinarily profound and cryptic, comprehensible only to those with exceptional mental fortitude. Those with weaker wills would struggle to even comprehend it, let alone practice it successfully. Even though Chen's mental will surpass that of ordinary individuals, his head throbbed with pain after fully perusing the technique. The sensation was far more taxing than directing the battle will of 5 armies in a ferocious battle. Chen couldn't help but click his tongue in amazement at the response. It was no wonder battle formation masters were so rare. Not only was the method for cultivating mental will exceptionally rare, but even reading and understanding such methods had an exceptionally high threshold. Most people, even if fortunate enough to acquire it, simply lacked the capability to practice it. With so many hurdles to overcome, the scarcity of battle formation masters was entirely justified. Still, despite its challenges, as Chen finished comprehending the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison visualization technique, he couldn't help but sigh in wonder at its profound brilliance. To cultivate this 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison visualization technique, One had to first visualize a thunder prison in their mind, and then immerse their mental will into it, subjecting it to relentless bombardment by lightning. The concept of using thunder to cultivate wasn't unheard of in the Great Thousand World. Many thunder-based techniques required similar conditions. But the mind itself was intangible. How could it possibly be tempered by lightning? This peculiar method required one to visualize a thunder prison in the mind, trapping one's mental will within it, and then imagine bolts of lightning hammering down upon the mental will. Through repeated bombardment, the mind would gradually grow stronger and more resilient. This type of cultivation was utterly unfamiliar to Chen. He had never even heard of such a technique before. This process of visualization could, in simple terms, be likened to dreaming. Fabricating something entirely non-existent out of nothingness, and then using this fabricated construct to achieve mental cultivation. The technique was so bizarre that even someone as composed as Chen was stunned for a long time before snapping back to his senses, letting out a faint, bitter laugh. Whoever the predecessor was that devised this technique was certainly a genius with an unorthodox, perhaps even twisted, perspective. How else could such an incredible method have been created? Moreover, to cultivate the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison Visualization Technique, one's mind needed a certain affinity with thunder. Only with sufficient affinity could the visualized thunder prison possess the necessary quality for effective cultivation. Within the thunder prison, the visualized thunder varied for each individual. Only by visualizing the type of thunder most aligned with one's mental affinity and harmony could the training yield the best results. When practicing the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison Visualization Technique, he could directly visualize the netherworld heart demon lightning. After all, he had previously merged with it, creating an extraordinary degree of compatibility. This alignment would undoubtedly make the process of visualizing the thunder prison much more efficient and effective. Most importantly, the netherworld heart demon lightning was inherently intangible and incorporeal, attacking through thunderous sounds. To some extent, it shared similarities with mental will. If he could use it to temper his mind, the results would likely be outstanding. At that thought, Chen couldn't help but feel a sense of fortune. It seemed the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison Visualization Technique was exceptionally well suited for him. It was no wonder he had been chosen. However, visualizing the thunder prison was far from a simple task of casually imagining it in his mind. The process involved a variety of complex and intricate methods. One of the most challenging aspects was ensuring the visualized thunder prison remained in his mind rather than vanishing once the visualization ended. Otherwise, he would have to recreate it from scratch each time he practiced, which would make cultivation nearly impossible. Retaining the visualized thunder prison required overcoming numerous obstacles. Reflecting on the difficulty, even Chen felt overwhelmed. For the first time, he truly appreciated that the path of a battle formation master was not one to be tread lightly. Still, having reached this point, retreat was no longer an option. It had taken great effort to acquire the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison Visualization Technique, and giving up now would be nothing short of wastefulness. Resolving himself, Chen pushed aside all hesitation. As his thoughts calmed, he steadily guided his mind to a state of emptiness, just as described in the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison Visualization Technique, systematically clearing his mind of all distractions. He maintained this vacant state for an unknown amount of time. At some point, his mind reached a state of total blankness, a void so profound that he almost forgot his very existence. This step, however, was fraught with danger, as the 9 Tribulations Thunder Prison Visualization Technique warned. If one completely lost a sense of self, the mental will could become unconscious, and an unconscious will would slowly and unknowingly dissolve into nothingness. This dissolution would be permanent. If his will dissipated, Chen might never wake up again. Fortunately, Chen was well prepared. As his mind approached utter emptiness, a deeply embedded awareness within his thoughts began to reawaken, a form of self-suggestion intended to rouse him at such a moment. Once he regained control of his mental will, Chen began the visualization process. Boom! In the blank void of his mind, the sound of thunder erupted suddenly. Darkness spread out endlessly, and within the overwhelming blackness, the roar of thunder echoed. And with thunder, there should be lightning. Chen's thoughts flickered, as though creating a world from scratch. He commanded the appearance of lightning, and sure enough, flashes of it began to manifest in the darkness. With the emergence of lightning, there should naturally follow the coming of thunderbolts. Boom, boom, boom. Lightning streaked through the void, but as Chen attempted to visualize thunderbolts, the roar of thunder in his mind suddenly grew explosively louder. Amid the deafening crashes, he was forcibly ejected from his mental state. Shaken out of his visualization, Chen's consciousness returned. All the sensations of failure flooded into his mind. He couldn't help but smirk bitterly. His first attempt at visualizing the thunder prison had ended in complete failure. Clearly, manifesting the thunder prison wasn't as simple as he'd hoped. Yet, despite this failure, Chen wasn't the least bit discouraged. After all, if the thunder prison could be visualized so easily, it would thoroughly demean the efforts required to train as a battle formation master. Well, if I failed, I'll just try again. With a carefree smile, Chen calmed his mind once more, allowing his thoughts to settle and gradually empty his consciousness. Once again, he entered the state of mental blankness. If one attempt wasn't enough, he would try 10 times, 100 times, or even 1,000. He refused to believe that, after countless attempts, he would fail to bring the thunder prison into being.